and welcome to another edition of Long Beach Treasures. I'm your host, Harvey Keller. Today we're on Island White, one of the 4 oil islands off the coast of Long Beach, and we're going to take a tour, and joining me is Curtis Henderson, who is the operations manager for the City of Long Beach Gas and Oil.
How you doing, Harvey? Good morning.
Thank you for joining us, and let's take a tour.
Okay, well, come along.
Okay, I said now this is Island White. There are 4 other islands.
Actually, there's 4 islands total. Island White is one of them. The other 3 are Island Grissom, Island Chaffee, and Island Freeman.
And they were named after the astronauts who lost their life in NASA-related accidents?
Grissom, White, and Chaffee were the ones that died on Apollo 1 back in the 60s. And Freeman was also an astronaut, and he died in a plane crash.
Now, these are 10 acres each.
3 of the islands are 10 acres. Island Freeman's a little bit larger.
And they were built at a cost of $2 million each?
Approximately $2 million each, just to construct the land-based portion of the island. The facilities, the vegetation, as you see around here, were at additional cost.
And the rocks were all brought over from Catalina?
You know, what happened was they took some quarry rock from Catalina and they made like a circle, and then they filled in from some of the soil surrounding the island and then put some more rock on top of it, kind of like a shield.
Now, this is a drilling tower, I understand, but from the shore it looks like a building, and many people confuse these with condominiums, don't they?
We still get calls on occasion, people asking if they can come out and rent the condominiums on the islands, but of course they cannot. It's hollow inside except for the drilling rig.
Now, this tower is on a track and it's movable?
Yes, it can go almost all the way around the island. We'll cross the tracks here in a few minutes, but yes, it can position it's now. It will be there until that well is drilled or whatever it's being done at that point in time, but it can rotate almost all the way around this island.
When were the islands built?
Islands are built starting in 1966, and they were completed in early 69.
And they're operating 24/7?
This operation, this is called the Long Beach Unit, or the East Wilmington Oil Field, and it operates on a 24/7 basis. Produces about 32,000 barrels of oil a day, but along with that, it's about 900, it's almost 1 million barrels of water is produced daily too.
Now, this is called THUMS, which stood for Texaco, Union, Humble, Mobil, and Shell.
Correct.
But it's not owned by the oil companies anymore.
No, the name stays the same, but in 1992, actually, ARCO bought out all the interest of all those oil companies. But in 1998, Oxy bought out ARCO's interest, and now is wholly owned by Occidental Petroleum.
And the City of Long Beach gets revenue from this yearly?
The city receives some revenue from this oil field. We receive oil revenue from our working interest owner in the town lot area, which is the part that's north of Ocean Boulevard. We also receive some other revenue from this field too.
Did you call this the Wilmington Field?
The Wilmington Field is an oil field that stretches from the far west end of Long Beach all the way to Orange County line.
And the oil was discovered approximately in the 30s?
1936. The first well, Watson No. 2, discovered the oil in the Harbor District.
And at one time, because of all the oil that was being pumped out, we started to sink?
As soon as they started producing the oil back in the 30s, they weren't injecting as we do now. And so there was a lot of oil and water coming out of the ground, and they weren't putting anything back. And so what happened is the reservoir actually was decreasing in pressure and caused the land to act kind of like a sponge underneath. And so as the water and oil came out, the ground started to subside as that pressure decreased. So by 1952, there was some points in the Harbor District that were sinking up to 2.4 feet a year. In the mid-50s, what we did, we started injecting water into the ground to try to stop the subsidence and see if it would, and the test pilot cases actually proved very successful. And by 1970, after the Long Beach unit came on production, the subsidence had stopped throughout Long Beach, but in some areas in the port it had sunk up to 29 feet.
Are there a lot of residents of Long Beach who still owns their mineral rights to their property like I do?
I was going to say, I heard that you do, Harvey, so.
I do. And you know, I like my check each month.
There's quite a number. Actually, in the Long Beach, my understanding is about 3,000, still 3,000 individual owners of mineral rights. But also, that's along with the city and the state of California, though, receives the majority of the revenue from this field.
Where else are we going to go?
Well, I'll tell you what, let's go take a look at the wells over here, and it's going to be a little bit different than you may be used to, and watch your step on the track here for the rig.
You know, it's really clean up here, isn't it?
It's very clean. I mean, it's one of the considerations when this was approved to allow the oil be drilled from this part of Long Beach. It wasn't, as I said, it wasn't started until 1965, and this field was known long before then. But what it was right here, looking right at downtown Long Beach, and no one really wanted to have a bunch of dirty oil wells in the oil field right out looking out at Long Beach. So what happened was, 62, the voter did lift the referendum to allow for this to be produced, but with the constraint that there would be no pollution, visual, noise, sound pollution. So as what you're looking at in the cellar are the wells. Normally you would see grasshoppers pumping up and down, taking the oil out of the ground.
Are each of these an oil well?
Each of those are oil well, and instead of a grasshopper, if it's a producing well...
Now, when you say grasshopper, is that the pump that goes up
That's
and
the
down?
big pump that goes up and down. And so instead of that, what you see is are these wells, and what they have is what's called a submersible pump. Now that pump is down 2,000, 3,000 feet down into the ground. So instead of that pump, that big grasshopper is sitting up above the ground, all the pump is down below the ground, and these cellars contain all the wells. Some of them are injectors too, where they're injecting water back into the ground.
Now, some of this is slant drilling because I get a check because you're drilling under my property, right?
You get a check, actually, it doesn't matter if there's a well underneath your property or not. You are a percentage owner of the unit. So you get it because you have a certain percentage ownership in the unit.
Oh, so there may not be any oil under my property at all?
Well, there is oil on your property, but there may not be a well underneath your property. That doesn't matter. So all these wells, when we say some slant drilling, these are all slant drilling. None of these wells are vertical wells.
You know, just being here, how quiet it is. It's just not noisy at all.
It's very quiet, and this is one of the reasons too. You see that all the wells are down below ground level, so they're in the cellar. All the sound, any of the fluids that may happen to leak out, is all contained in the cellar, and eventually if there's any fluids, that all gets pumped out and processed, and oil gets sent to shore, and the water gets injected back into the ground here.
I know Island Gresham, which is right off the closest to Long Beach, right there at the downtown marina.
Right.
You know, you can you can stand there in the end and you could probably throw a rock and hit the island, but you do not hear a single sound, smell any oil. It's just unbelievable.
Well, as you can see here, I mean, you're standing right in the heart of this island, and you hear a little bit of noise, but it's all contained down in the cellar. You don't smell anything out here, and you really don't see it. It's a very clean island, as you can see, looking around. And one of the things we'll get over to are these concrete forms over here.
Let's go over.
Look at it.
Now, I assume that's partly for the soundproofing?
It's for the soundproofing, certainly, and it keeps all the sound on the island. It also, what it does, is you can't see what's going on the islands from shore, so I think, as you've said, is that it's hard to believe there's even an oil operation out here because visually you don't see what's going on from shore.
That must have been quite a feat, doing the soundproofing, the landscaping, the sculpturing, the waterfalls, and all of the things that were done to beautify and make the island quiet.
But that was the constraint that was put on for all this. I mean, we didn't want to have drilling, a big oil operation going on right in front of downtown without disguising it all, making sure it stays clean, making sure you don't have any visual pollution, noise pollution, or smells.
Are these storage tanks over here?
Now, there's really not any storage for oil or water or gas. What happens here, and we'll get over the forms in a second, is that from the producing wells we saw a few minutes ago in the cellar, the fluid comes out and goes to what's called a well tester, and it measures how much water, gas, and oil is coming out of each of those wells. Then this one tank that's lying horizontally just past these few tanks here, it's called a free water knockout. All it does is all the fluid goes into there, the gas, which is the lightest, comes up off the top, the oil floats on top of the water, and the water goes down below and gets pumped off below. Well, all it is separating out the three phases, the gas, the oil, and the water. And from there, what happens is the oil gets shipped back off the island, so there's no storage here. The water gets injected back into the ground.
But there's no pollution.
There's no pollution. Huh? It's all done by subsea pipelines, though.
What's clarified water? Do you know? I just saw it on the tank, and I have no idea what it is.
Oh, that one over there, okay. What it is that the water is coming out of the wells. A lot of times it's emulsified. What that means is that there is some oil contained within that water. And before we want to inject it back in the ground, we want to make sure as much of that oil is out of the water. Because if you inject it back into the ground, you're not going to get that oil back out. I mean, ultimately, this field will produce about 30 to 40% of the oil that's in the ground. It's not economic to get out the rest of that 70 to 60%. So if you inject any oil back in the ground, you're not going to get it back up. So all the rest of all the tanks and everything else you see, for the most part here, is to make sure all the oil is out of the water before it gets injected back into the ground.
If you were looking into your crystal ball, what would be your projection for the longevity of this oil field?
As this field is now and these oil prices, it'll last at least another 20 or 30 years.
And is this, am I correct, this is the fourth largest oil producing field in the nation?
Well, the video that we were shown beforehand, it was a safety video to get you accustomed to what you're going to see out here and make sure everything's nice and safe for you. The video did say it's the fourth largest, and that's behind East Texas Field in Texas, Midway Sunset, and I believe one of the fields up in Alaska, Kuparuk, or I'm not sure which one.
Now these are just false fronts just for...
Now unfortunately today, I mean, one form we're looking off to right now, on the opposite side is, if you were to see it from shore, it'd be the waterfall, and it goes on at about 6 o'clock at night and shuts off about 10 o'clock. So right now they're kind of cleaning up the forms, making sure there's no cracks, because it is a concrete structure and we are in an ocean environment. We want to make sure that the forms stay very healthy. So yeah, a little bit of painting up there, as you can see, a little cleanup.
I just can't get over how clean it is up here. It's just really...
It's not too bad. It's very clean, very quiet. You can still see it. It's,
with all of the, looks like lockers over there. I know they're not.
You know, all high voltage lines over there coming in. As the pumps you saw earlier, it's all electric. So we're one of Edison's larger customers. We do have a 50 megawatt power plant that's over in the port that supplies a lot of our electricity here too.
Now, are these more oil wells over here?
The wells go almost all the way around the island. If you go over take a look, each one's numbered. You see the designation B. This is Island B. They originally were A, B, C, D, or Alpha, Beta, Charlie, and Delta. And each well has its number. You can see 770, 771I. That would be an injector.
Do you have any idea how many wells have been drilled?
Well, I think what said there's about 1,900 have been drilled from this part of the field,
wow.
But right now there's between 11 to 1,200 that are active.
That's amazing.
It's a lot of wells. Like I said, we're producing almost 1 million barrels, which a day of fluid. So each barrel is 42 gallons. So that's 42 million gallons of fluid that's produced and injected back into the ground every day.
Wow. And what's down here? More of the oil island.
Well, we'll go take a look and see. You can see it better on the right-hand side here. The FWKO's free water knockouts, as I was speaking of earlier, where all the fluid comes in, gas goes off the top, as I said, and the oil floats on top of the water, and the water gets pumped off the bottom. and then eventually we'll show you where all that fluid, or at least the oil, goes to shore in a minute.
Hey, I noticed the other day as I was walking along the bluff, you painted the structures.
Well, they need a little bit of upkeep occasionally, so we've changed to a little bit of darker blue this time.
So you can charge more rent for the condos?
Yes, definitely.
This just keeps going and going and going.
Well, 10 acres is a pretty good size. Let's walk over to this rig that's over here in front of us.
Now, there's a drilling rig inside the tower?
There's a drilling rig inside the tower, so you can, like I said, you can go all the way around the island. All these wells have been done by that or a similar rig. These islands used to have more than one rig or drilling rig in years past, but we just don't need all those rigs anymore. We're not drilling that many wells per year. About 60 wells are drilled from this unit every year now.
I thought I used to remember 2 or 3 of the tall structures on the oil islands, and then all of a sudden there was just one.
Oh, back in the early 80s, I believe we had about 9 rigs in this field going all at the same time. Now we're going to hit a couple things here. Now what you can see in front of us is a workover rig. Now it's not drilling a well. What it's doing is fixing a well probably. It's either changing out the pump or it's cleaning up, perhaps putting some acid down in the well. It could be a couple different things. Now, it's one of the noisier features of this island, unfortunately. You can hear a little bit of it now. Those are the injection pumps. Now that's what it's doing, is it's putting all the water back into the ground so we don't have subsidence.
Are those long metal rods, or is that what they drill?
No, it's not drilling. What it's doing instead, probably, that's going down and retrieving, say, a pump, or it's going down and going to fracture the well or do something with the well. So it's hard to tell without exactly knowing which well they're working on right now.
Do you have any idea how many people it takes to run the oil island?
Well, Thumbs itself employs about 220 people, but they also employ a lot of subcontractors too. So I think all told about 700 employees are out, not on just one island, but between the office of Thumbs or the islands.
The reason I ask is I look around, I really don't see a lot of workers.
Well, a lot of them are either, you can't see the workers on the rig here. There's an office we can go in and take a look and see what's going on in there, but no, there's not that many people. I mean, most of what you see out here is very automated. And we can go take a look over here and what else we can find.
I'm sure there's plenty to find up here. Are most of the islands about the same?
The 3 islands that are closest to shore, Grissom, White, and Chaffee, are all pretty much identical in facilities and size. Freeman is just a little bit bigger. Since it's farther from shore, they decided to put it more on a rectangular basis. These first 3 islands, closer to shore, more octagonal, and they don't present a large footprint that you can see from shore. But facility-wise, they're all pretty much the same. You got wells on them, produce the oil and water and gas. You got injection wells, you put the water back in, and all the either the sand filters, clarifiers, free water knockouts, all the equipment's very much the same, maybe placed a little bit differently.
Now, none of the workers stay here overnight.
No, they come and go. This is not as a rig you may see offshore Santa Barbara where people come and stay maybe a week or two. So, since we have the boats that come on an hourly basis out to the islands, they can come and go as they please or as the shift changes.
Now, it's a little bit noisier over here.
But as you can see, we're right in the middle of the island too. So that was one of the features. They knew which the noisier equipment was going to be, so they kind of stationed that in the middle so any other sound would dissipate by the time we got to the edge of the island.
So that was all planned in advance.
It was planned well in advance. So the fluid, as I was saying earlier, I mean, one of the things is to clean up the water as much as possible. So it went from the free water knockout to the clarifier, to the flotation separators, and on all that, for the most part, like I said, is just try to clean up that water as much as possible before it gets back through the sand filters, make sure there's no grit to the injection pumps and get pushed back or injected back into the ground.
You know, I had an awful lot of people ask me to do this show because they were always curious about the oil islands. Is it ever open to the public?
We do take tours, as you're taking a tour now too. There are a lot of tours that come out here either through schools or through some community groups.
A lot of palm trees out here.
Well, it's as said, it's trying to design it so it's nice and visually it looks good from shore, or it looks good from any point of shore or from a boat. So it's very well disguised. And you can see off this side, which is the ocean side, there aren't the concrete barriers or concrete forms as you can see from the downtown side, because any sound gets dissipated and there's not really anyone living off in the ocean over there except maybe on a boat, and they can always move it.
I noticed we've not walked very far from the middle, but it's already a lot quieter as we get away.
Doesn't take far, it quiets down very, very quickly. Kind of right in front of us, off to the right, you see all these colored pipes. What they are is they allow fluid to go from either one island to another, or the oil goes to Pier J, which is, then it gets shipped to the refineries from there. So each one is color-coded as per island or to Pier J. And what this allows you is the island produces a lot of fluid, a lot of water. And maybe this island doesn't need to inject all that water back at this point. So it has the ability to take that water and ship it to another island for injection purposes.
Is the water heated up at all because of the operation?
Actually, it's kind of the other way around. It's actually pretty warm coming out of the ground at an average temperature about 125 degrees when it comes out of the ground. And no, it doesn't get warmed up. The oil isn't the greatest oil in the world. It makes great asphalt and terrible gasoline. So it's a low API number. It's about 18 API. But it still flows readily enough to get to shore, and we don't have to heat it up. And all these pipes, though, need to be cleaned up, and on a weekly basis, what they do, and I think on the other side we'll go find it, is they put what's called a pig through the pipe. And what it does is clean out the pipe and make sure that you don't have any corrosion going in the pipe. And now, at least once a year, they run what's called a smart pig through all these pipes. What it does is measure any corrosion in the pipes, and they can gauge through the years if there's any problems in the pipes that are going to occur. And we've never had a leak or an oil spill from this operation.
Do you paint often? Because it really looks like it's been freshly painted.
We do paint quite a bit. I mean, we are in an ocean environment, and it does get very corrosive out here because of salt water.
So we're going down this way?
Now let's make a right here, and
I'll follow you.
Get up. So what you think of the operation?
I'm very impressed. I've been out here once before, and I was impressed then. I think what impresses me the most is the cleanliness of the operation. You don't see any oil on the ground. You don't see any waste material on the ground. It's just clean.
It's very nice. And here we go. And some of the things you don't see are inside the pipes. Like I was saying, these are the pigs. You see the brushes and how everything's situated. What they do is they put it in the pipeline, and they pressure it to the different island location, or to a different island actually. And what it does, like I said, is cleans up the pipe on the inside and ensures that there's no corrosion going on.
So the brush is just
scrapes the inside of the pipe, and these are kind of a hard, heavy rubber.
Sort of like a Roto-Rooter?
For the most part.
Wow.
And let's take a quick tour in the office here. Let's take a look inside the main office here on the island. About the only office, really. You can see there's a lot of computer displays, terminals. It's very automated. probably the most amount of people you've seen so far.
Still not a lot of people.
Still not a lot. All the computers are connected either to the automation out here and is also connected to the main office in downtown Long Beach.
So this is the operations room.
The main operations room.
And here we are back at the tower.
We've pretty much gone full circle around the island where we can. And we can take a look at a little bit of the drilling going on here, but can't go inside. You see they're painting, cleaning it up a little bit. As noted earlier, is that the whole structure's been recently painted.
That's unbelievable that that can move around the oil island on a track as big as it is.
Yeah, you can take a look here and see exactly what's contacting this track.
And you can see it going along there. Huh. How long does it take to move? Do you know?
I believe it moves at about 5 miles an hour, so I could be wrong. It's a little piece of trivia I'm not sure about anymore. And here's a cellar in front of us. You can take a look. I mean, there's about 4, 5, 6, 7 wells, but there's quite a few empty spots for additional wells in the future.
So those are all spots where they can drill from?
Each one of those, yes. And as I said, we're drilling about 60 wells a year right now from this field, or this part of the field. So eventually maybe all those conductors, or those blank spots, will be filled up with wells in another 5 or 10 years.
The more wells, the more I make, right?
Well, the more wells, the more your check will perhaps stay the same, because if the oil prices stay where they're at.
It's a double-edged sword. I get more money from my oil rights, but I have to pay more at the gas station.
Well, yes, but I think yeah.
I guess it's an even trade for me.
Hey, gas prices come down recently.
Yeah, they are. I noticed less than $3 for a regular today.
It's not too bad. Saw $2.91 at Arco.
All right, is that about it?
Well, that's really about it. I'm more than happy to answer more questions. But for a quick tour of the island, you really saw most of it. If you noted, I can see about 7 people at this point, 7, 8 people. That's most of us think we've seen the whole time, but it's still a lot of things happen out here. You just don't see too many people.
I assume they have to bring the trucks and stuff out on barges?
Let's take a look at where those come over. Forgot I missed that. And you're right, all the trucks, barges, or all the trucks, larger equipment, the workover rig we saw earlier, all has to be brought over by barge. And all that comes from Pier G over in the port.
Those would be pretty good-sized barges to bring some of these trucks over here.
Well, actually, they can bring quite a number of trucks on those barges at one time. So there's a ramp right in front of us where what they do is they bring the barge up to the ramp and the trucks just drive right off of it. Now all the people that you see on the islands come over in the crew boat that we rode in earlier. Now, occasionally there'll be good timing and there'll be a barge here, but today I don't think we're going to get that one.
So this is where they tie up. So that goes down.
That, what happens is the barge comes up and then the ramp will lower down and sit on top of the barge, and then the trucks can either drive on or drive off of it. And so that just occurs just as needed basis.
Curtis, I want to thank you for taking us on a tour today. This is most enlightening, and now I've fulfilled all the requests of all the people who asked me to do a show on the oil island. So I thank you, sir, very much.
It's been a pleasure. Come out anytime.
Well, I will be back.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much.
And if you have any requests for shows that you would like to see, why, drop me an email at lbtreasures@aol.com, and we'll see if we can fulfill your request. And thanks for watching. That's our show for this time, and we'll see you again next time as we take another walk through history and uncover more Long Beach treasures.